It's gonna explode. So, Tony grossly reinterprets anything I say to somehow fit what he wants to do, even if they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm tired of people doing that. Also, when you're doing something that's fucking up my life, and I try to explain it to you, don't repeatedly interrupt me because you don't want to fucking hear it. You're doing something that's fucking up my life. I spent all of last week trying to fix shit that Tony assumed and fucked my life up with. When you tell me you're gonna fucking do something, and I explain to you that that's something you need to listen and let me explain shit about that instead of doing it again and again and again and telling me you understand and you're not going to do it again and then you immediately do it again. No, that is not help. That is not listening. That does not assist me in the least bit. That wastes my time. When I say that I need to sort this stuff out, and you've got 10 million ideas about how I can sort this shit out, and you start bringing me stuff, so I literally can't even make it to the shit that I need to sort out because you're bringing me more shit. You're bringing me fucking solutions for problems I don't have and making it fucking worse for me. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Hey, stop second guessing me when you don't know what the fuck is going on. When I try to explain it to you, being a fucking dickhead and trying to talk over me like you know better than me about my situation and what my intentions are, Jesus Christ. The video I'm about to play is from, I want to say the 16th this month. Let's scroll on the phone. It has the time and date. You want to know the times and the dates? I don't know. It was a few fucking days ago. It was a few days ago. All right, that's the best that I can remember. I remember that it happened, but every fucking day that I have is chock full of bullshit. It's completely full. I got shit that I got to do. And then Tony is going to offer a bunch of shit that will actually help me, right? So I set aside those things for his help, and he doesn't fucking help. So now that shit that I had to put aside because I got somebody to help me, it's still put aside. I had to spend the whole fucking week trying to fucking get this shit out of my goddamn tent while he's bringing me more, and I'm telling him, stop. The one thing I've needed him to fucking do this whole time is shut his goddamn mouth, sit down next to me, and look at the fucking computer. No, we don't need a bunch of goddamn thumb drives. All we need is you to fucking sit down and look. So it says it's from March 15th. It's now March 23rd, so it's over a week. So I was wrong. This shit hasn't been a week. It's been about 2. My Bluetooth speaker. You should get a Bluetooth speaker. I got some. I don't need those suggestions. When I tell you I have one, that doesn't mean suggest it over and over again.
What do you want? I figured I'd start an argument. God damn it. I wish they would stop cruising by like.
Mind you, I'm only calling this guy and talking to him because he is in his mind. When I say in person, he seems to me think that means let's do 10,000 electronic things that eat up a bunch of fucking time because this is what Tony wants to fucking do. I can say sit down next to me and look at it 100 fucking times. What he's gonna hear is make 10,000 complicated electronic things, not show me how to use them and talk about that because that's his special fucking interest. I gotta find somebody who's not on fucking drugs. Is there a single goddamn person in Tillamook other than myself that is not strung out on fucking meth? Jesus Christ.
I like that. I'm not sure if you heard those people driving by just now. All right. Do what? The dogs are just barking at something. Yeah, there's people that like to drive nicely all over town, and then when they get up to this block, they rev up their vehicles real loud. I was kind of noticing that when I was out at night that things tend to get kind of weird. They didn't used to. Yeah, well, when I was telling you about the stuff with the drug addicts across the street, you guys are already aware of that. You guys weren't aware of how much of that was actually, targeted towards me a lot of times, which, based on the situation and your understanding at that time, that makes perfect sense. Plus, with you being in the basement, Roy gets to hear a lot of stuff that you don't. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of that, is people targeting me. Not all of it, I don't think that every person who yells is yelling at me. Obviously, I don't think that every vehicle that revs itself up is doing that at me. I know very specifically who my predators are. So when I was staying on the front porch, I saw them specifically. Now that I'm not on the front porch, I don't see them, but they do still know that I'm staying here, Great. Yeah. So that's something I was trying to explain. Like the targeting doesn't just affect me; it does affect others. But then those others don't make the connection because a lot of times those others are, they've got their assumptions that they're stuck with, and they don't actually look at the evidence. They say, "Oh, I believe you. I don't need to see the evidence." And then, later on when it turns out that
And this is something that I've had to explain to him multiple times because he keeps doing it. That's not my choice. That's not my decision. Also, this is how you guys treat retards. Okay, that's what you guys have decided that I am. No matter what you say about my intelligence, how smart you think I am, this, that, and the other, the fact is you're treating me like I'm retarded. When I tell you somebody's not listening to me, that does mean they're not listening to me. If you listen to a half-hour segment where they might, on a very rare occasion, actually listen to me for a half an hour and seems like they're actually listening because they're not running their mouths. But then as soon as they start running their mouths, you realize they didn't hear anything. They went right back to, all right, well, Sean knows what he needs to do, but we're not going to do it the way that Sean needs to, the way that Sean is instructed to, the way that Sean's paperwork from these professional places tells him to. We're not going to do it that way because we all know better than he does. We all know that ignoring the situation and just letting him be harmed and refusing to look at the evidence and talking about a healthy amount of skepticism, yeah, that's going to fix the situation. Let's blow him off and be skeptical while he's having to take assaults, while he's having to deal with people threatening his friends and his family. And of course, most of my friends and family are not my friends and family anymore. And this is exactly why. Doing exactly the same thing that Tony's doing. Sure, good intentions, but you don't intend on helping. You don't intend on hearing my story. You don't intend on looking at the evidence. You intend on arguing. Even if you promise to help me how I need, you're going to wiggle and finagle so that you can do as little as possible and then just order me around as if you, who are clueless of the situation from hearing nothing and looking at nothing, are so superior to myself and understanding of the situation. Fucking Christ. It gets to the point where I am literally having to yell. You don't hear me when I try to tell you nicely. You are 100% of the time going to interrupt me and not hear the explanation. Then you tell me you understand. No, you don't. No, you don't. You showed you are going out of your way not to understand by interrupting again. Now, those interruptions, if they had an actual bearing on the situation, some of those interruptions would be all right, but not the first time through. It's kind of like when I was at Ventus's in Denver and I was trying to tell my story. I couldn't get through any of it. He was arguing the whole time. And I was like, dude, I need you to hear me. All right. This is the first step in helping the victim, is listening to understand, not to interrupt, not to get offended, not to treat them like a liar, not to throw your personal opinions in. None of that. Save your opinions for the end when you have all the details. So let's do what we need to get this recorded and put online, which sucks. I don't want to put this online. I need this guy's help. Needed. It's obvious he's not capable. One of the reasons I'm being nice about that is because he did tell me that
these things are true. They're like, dude, this is fucked up. I disbelieved you. I always just held up a healthy amount of skepticism. Yeah, that's why I try to get people to look at the evidence, because that skepticism usually lingers. Most people don't bother to try actually looking. Some people will non-committally say that they will, or with the and branching worms, because they are in everybody's clothes worldwide and global.
And this is one of the problems with getting help from schizophrenics. The first time I heard about these branching worms, it's kind of like, okay, the guy in Hood River who thought he had nano bugs under his arms and stuff like that, or the other guy here who has beetles crawling underneath his skin and gets angry with me because I can't see the beetles crawling underneath his skin. The first time I heard about these branching worms, I was trying to tell Tony about the situation with Natalie and with Andrew Wolnez and the assaults. And he was treating me with a healthy amount of skepticism. No, he was outright treating me like I was a fucking delusional schizophrenic. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to have a conversation with this guy about anything, because this is always where it reverts. And I said to him, every time I try to talk to you, you ask the questions, I try to answer them, and you treat me like I'm schizophrenic. He said, it's kind of like me with my branching worms. I got no idea what branching worms are. I've never heard of branching worms. And he's saying this angrily. He's saying angrily to me, well, you don't believe me about the branching worms, and went off for like 5 minutes. It's the first time I'd ever heard him talk about the branching worms that live in our clothes, and it's the reason that our clothes fold funny, and they're apparently some big issue. I don't have any problem with my clothes. I don't. He says, well, nobody can see these branching worms. Well, at least he's different than people like that feller who thinks he's got the beetles under his arms. The guy who was trying to show me the beetles on his arms, that they were like this big, how couldn't I see them? I mean, this guy was pissed. So at least with the Tony thing, he's understanding of the fact that, yeah, I just have to blindly believe him. Everyone in the world just has to blindly believe him about his scientific studies about these branching worms. I don't know that they're scientific studies. I don't know anything about branching worms. I also can't take my time to listen to you give me a speech about branching worms every time that we talk. I can't deal with the fact that I'm having to not only rely on somebody who's a drug addict, but also a schizophrenic. And those two things are very apparent. It's not like he hides them. At least that part he's not hiding. But he's not stopping to reflect on how that is affecting me, how it is affecting his ability to listen. I mean, his disability can't possibly be the problem, right? Meanwhile, I don't want to bring up people's disabilities. I didn't want to bring up mine. I had to because people were pretending that my disabilities were something other than they were. They wanted to pretend that Tourette syndrome is the same thing as fucking meth use. It's not. They want to pretend that OCD is the same thing as being a stalker. It's not. And then they want to pretend that because I'm autistic that I am too retarded to understand the English language. No, you're not hearing what I'm saying. That's a choice. That is a respect thing. That shows a severe amount of disrespect when I'm trying to show you evidence so you'll quit treating me like I'm a fucking liar or a schizo, and I'm having to deal with this out of fucking schizos over shit that they got wrong in their fucking head, because that's how schizophrenia works. And schizophrenic people, all right, they gather information and stuff that they don't understand. Their brain automatically sets something in stone, and they're stuck on that. When people want to use the freeze loop against me, that's what they think the freeze loop is. It's not. The freeze loop is having to rely on those kind of people for help. You're not getting anywhere. The instructions are pretty easy. I'm supposed to turn this stuff in to a friend or family member, and we're supposed to turn it in right away. And out of the multiple occasions that have happened, you know, it's just like going to TFCC or CARE when I'm assaulted or when I'm harassed by these people who continue to do so. I tell him, and he talks over it and continues on his merry way. And this branching worm thing, I mean, we're only 3 minutes into this one, and he's already talking about his branching worms. Now, this is something that he agreed that instead of him making about his branching worms over and over and over again, that he's actually going to listen and he's actually going to look at evidence. See, it's not just all of these other projects, it's also his mental disabilities getting in the way. He also doesn't understand post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't get to explain it to him because he's going to interrupt me because he knows something better. He knows a better way of doing something, or he wants to go back to something he already agreed that he's going to stop pushing like a crackhead. Now, the thing is, like I keep saying, it's drug addicts and schizophrenics who are helping me, because my friends and family didn't care. They wanted to treat me just like Tony. The police didn't care. They wanted to treat me just like Tony. Some of them far more rudely so. But with all that time going to CARE, and they didn't help me with any of that stuff, all right? They finally helped me to get my disability money back. But then, of course, all the stuff that it was going to take to get into housing, they didn't do any of that. None of it. I did the work. It went absolutely nowhere. They intentionally miscommunicated. I didn't know that. Well, it would have been nice if Russell would have told you, but I've been telling you for 6 months, maybe you should talk to Russell. They didn't. They intentionally misrepresented the situation. I recorded the conversations. I recorded me being lied to over and over and over again. You tell me you're going to talk to somebody about something, one of your employees, because it's created a situation where I'm being harmed. You tell me you're going to talk to that employee and they're going to help me. And the next time I talk to that employee, not only are they fucking clueless and fucking playing a bunch of bullshit, but you're on vacation for 3 months. None of these people are responsible. None of these people that care are responsible adults. I've got recording after recording with homeless victims of the same shit I'm going through. Of course, there's a big difference between me and most of these other homeless victims. Most of them are drug addicts. Most of them are schizophrenic drug addicts. It's a combination thing. It's called dual diagnosis. Many of these people, well, they talk about that, how these different places focus specifically on the drug addicts because they get more money when they're drug addicts. I'm addicted to tobacco. Is that good enough? No, it's not. It's not on any of the lists of shit that they get money for helping us with. It doesn't count as a real addiction, apparently. So if you want to get help here in Oregon, you have to become a drug addict of some sort. Sorry, I've been talking so long. I'll press play again. There it goes.
And if obviously they just got desensitized to them because your brain's just when your brain doesn't know what's happening, it just makes stuff up. To fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Well, that's a sign of schizophrenia in a lot of occasions.
No. This is what our brains do. They'll fill in the blanks to make things make sense.
Our brains try to figure stuff out. I'm autistic. The difference between an autistic person and a schizophrenic person is that a schizophrenic person, you've got some holes, right? You got a bunch of holes there. A schizophrenic person or somebody who just doesn't care is going to drop stuff into those missing pieces. And a schizophrenic person in specific is going to leave those pieces in place. If they decided that the only possible solution or the only possible reason for that is because magical unicorns and their parents out to get them, they're stuck on that. They are pretty much permanently stuck on that. And even when you think that you've made progress, they are always going to revert. Always. I have never known a schizophrenic that did not revert back to their previous delusions. I have never known a schizophrenic person that did not revert back to their previous set beliefs, ever. You can show them, hey, here's proof that it wasn't a magical unicorn. Okay, it had nothing to do with magical unicorns at all. And you show them that it's not a magical unicorn. You show them proof that it's not a magical unicorn. Well, they're not going to see the proof because they're busy talking about magical unicorns. You can hold it up right in front of their face and they aren't going to hear it because magical unicorns. When they decide that they can fix something, that thing is set in place. Kind of like when you guys don't have enough respect for somebody to listen, to understand. When you want to project onto that person the stuff that you filled into those empty slots. Now, when what you have filled into those empty slots does not align with reality, that's where you guys have the issue. Many of you just don't want to admit that you were wrong. You don't want to admit how much time you wasted. You don't want to admit that you promised to help me how I need. And then the fixes that you put into those individual slots that you said you were going to stop pushing. You're the same with that as you are about your opinions. Once you've decided that it must be a magical unicorn, now you've decided the only way to fix it is to get a 50 caliber sniper rifle to take out the unicorn. No, that's not the solution. And if I tell you over and over again it wasn't a magical unicorn, it was somebody who physically assaulted me, it was a human being, they want to convince you that it was a human being or a unicorn in human form. I read a book where that happened. Yeah, I know there's fantasies like that all over the place, but I know the difference between a book and reality. So, of course, this is pretty far into this video. It's 25 minutes in, and on the recording that I'm playing, we're only, I want to say, about 5 minutes in. But with somebody, oh, I screwed that up. With somebody who's autistic, we don't put anything permanently anywhere. When we think about something, we don't fill in the blanks and just assume that that's how it is and set it in stone. With new information, we have to adapt that new information. When we're putting stuff into the wrong slots because somebody's lying to us, that is a different story than somebody just deciding it's a magical unicorn. When we're trying to fill in the holes in this story, we are constantly changing it because we're trying to take all of the information and make sense of it, not force sense of it that doesn't make sense. Fitting a round peg into a square hole. And when you say, hey, that's not working, maybe you should look at the blocks before assuming it's going to fit. Now, this is actually 2 hours long, so I am going to try to work on this in here, which I've been working on for all week. When I tell this guy that I need to be able to work on this stuff, and this is what I'm working on when he's not helping me. And then he wants to help with all of that stuff. I don't need help with all that. I've spent the whole week trying to clear stuff out, clean stuff out, dry stuff out, move stuff out. And this is all stuff I should have done 2 weeks ago and was doing 2 weeks ago until I got bombarded with all this stuff. And then he's taking away time from what I need to be working on to work on his special projects over and over and over again. And when I tell him, hey, can we pause on that? Then he wants to push it more. He wants to push the writing, disability chair. And the thing is that all of this stuff that he's piling up on me, at that point, it made it impossible to even move the disability chair. It stuck there because all of the stuff that's behind it, all the stuff that's in front of it, and he's not recognizing this. And then he wants to work on it at night. I'm like, it's 11 o'clock at night. All right, here's the tools. Okay, now I'm coming out of my tent to hold a flashlight because this guy wants to make a bunch of work and tell me about the batteries, and he's adding more to my plate. Wait until I got the money. And then when I have the money, I need to focus on protecting myself and getting an actual car. Oh, come on now.
We'll just think it's, whatever, and write it off, and don't think anything of it because it's not really like that important. And so, those little things that do add up to something, but most people never connect the dots all the way to the end. Like I have been able to figure this out. I don't think there's anybody out there that's like gotten as far as I have as far as knowing like what these things are.
Well,
that is like figured out as far as I have.
The stuff that I'm working on, that I pulled out to show. I've got a bag that's full of a bunch of different evidence from different places showing that they continued to pretend that I was schizophrenic and delusional long after they realized that I wasn't, and that the courts, knowing that I was trying to turn in the judge.
And we're having to do this over the phone. He's 50 feet away. Okay. He's literally 50 feet away. I'm having to explain this over the phone, which is exactly I don't want you to believe me. I want you to see the evidence and know it's true. He can move 50 feet, but he wants to make a bunch of complicated stuff with this phone here and another phone over there. And then, we'll do all this USB stuff and we're doing all this other stuff. I don't need any of that right now. When I explained to him in person, he wants to continually bring up the phone and the phone and the phone, the phone, the phone, the phone, the phone. Yes, I heard the first time about the phone. Do you not understand? Over the phone is not in person. All right. This is understandable if somebody is in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm in Tillamook, Oregon. It makes no sense if they're at the same exact property on the same exact block of the same exact town in the same exact state. That makes zero sense, especially when you can walk to my door and talk about a bunch of schizophrenic stuff that is literally listening to you talk about this schizophrenic stuff is sending me over the edge. I'm having a mental breakdown from you talking nonstop about a bunch of shit that literally is not looking at evidence or hearing my story. I've got so much stuff in here. And the stuff he's bringing me is big. So it got to the point where I didn't have a walkway. I didn't have a bed. What I had was this space right here. So I had to spend time moving stuff out of here. I'm in severe pain from all of the physical labor that I have ended up with as a result of his schizophrenic help, drug-induced help. Is he really hearing me when he's on drugs? Probably not. Is he hearing me when he's coming down? Definitely not. When they're coming down, they get pissy. They get angry. Now, we all get angry, don't we? But why are you angry? Are you angry for a reason, or are you angry because you have a schizophrenic delusion in your head that is made worse by your meth use? I mean, Christ. Oh, it went off again. And after this video, I'm going to try to play this one all the way through without interrupting again.
And like pretty much everybody involved treated me like Natalie Bollinger was a delusion, while knowing that she wasn't a delusion and using the situation with Natalie in another state as their excuse to deny me my rights in this state. And then telling me that I can't bring anything up from another state while they're bringing up stuff from other states as their excuses to deny me my rights and pretend I'm schizophrenic and delusional. So I've got my hospital paperwork here that shows that I have been going to the hospital when physically assaulted in a way that made it necessary. It's just one bag of paperwork though. But one of the things is making it easy to show it to somebody. A lot of people like to tell me to send stuff over the internet, and then it becomes a big thing where we've spent three days, overall worth of time trying to figure out how to do something where somebody is literally, a block away. If they come over and sit down for an hour, they can see it. One of the issues I got right now is I probably stink to high heaven, and being in close proximity probably sucks. My disability money, I have to budget it, and that's one of the things that they've been able to, like I said, when they tell me to go to a mental health place for help, and if I don't go, then they say I'm not trying to get help. So I have to go to those places when they tell me to, which means I have to expend time and energy to do that instead of doing the things that actually help me. Meanwhile, most of the things that actually help me, there's still the fact that even if I make the effort, if there's no friend or family member there to see it, then it didn't happen, basically.
Yeah, that's fucking bullshit. I hate people.
I can't hear you. You're really, really super quiet.
I'm sorry, my phone's on me. I didn't notice.
This happens.
That is some bullshit. They waste your time like that, dude.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about police claiming that I'm not trying to turn in these crimes, and then they also claim that I made hundreds of 911 calls for no reason. Like, obviously, if somebody is physically assaulting me and I call 911, there's a reason I called 911. Obviously, I did make the effort. You're pretending that the effort wasn't there and that I was making calls for no reason. That the phone calls and the physical assaults are unrelated somehow. Obviously, that's not the case. They're going out of their way to ignore common sense at this point. And that's the thing about the mental health thing, is that when you try to turn in police officers and you're sent to those police officers, they abuse their position of power and send you to mental health and lie to mental health. And that's called, oh God, I'm trying to remember the name of it. When you have to try to turn in your predator, but your
See, here's what it always comes down to. Control issue. A respect issue. If you care about the victim, you will listen to the victim. Not make them go through all of this. It devolves from listening to the victim to him interjecting his schizophrenic delusions. Or maybe these worms are real. Okay, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt that these worms are real. But while he's telling me about these worms, he's not looking at evidence. He's not hearing my story. Even when I'm telling him stuff, you can hear me telling him these things. And that's not what's registering in his head. That's not what he's hearing. When you tell him not to do something because it's harmful, what is going through his head is do it again, do it again, do it again. That's a severe issue. Now, if you're going to do something to me and then pretend I'm doing that to you, that's severely fucked up. Like Natalie Bollinger and her friends fucking stalking me and then calling me a stalker. They made my life hell. But I had friends like Tony. That healthy amount of skepticism, he wanted to keep on bringing up that healthy amount of skepticism instead of listening to understand. What you did is actually important. What you did wrong is important, but he doesn't want to hear it. It's important because so many people do that. Now, he, as a drug addict and a schizophrenic, does understand how being a drug addict and a schizophrenic, how they're treated. I'm not schizophrenic. My paperwork shows I'm not schizophrenic, but I'm treated the same way that he is. Not only that, but I'm treated that way by him. He says he understands. I just need him to sit next to me and look at the computer. Okay, this is something that no matter what, he's always going to the big screen. He's trying to make a sale. Okay, this is what he's doing this whole time. He's trying to make a sale. The problem is he doesn't have anything to sell. All this stuff that he's talking about, but not actually doing, well, that's not providing a service. It's not providing a service when you never get around to it. When you want to try to convince me not to go to the printing place because you'll do it. You want to convince me not to go to Fred Meyer's because you got all this stuff that you're going to give me. I can't wait. That's not sarcasm. That's me saying I can't wait on you to maybe keep your word eventually, possibly, but probably not. Or your help long after I have other things going on now. Now, then I'm supposed to go to a friend or family member when this stuff happens, when there's violations of the protection order and assaults and things like that. And I tried telling the people that I was supposed to go to, my people here who are saying that they're my friends. I did that every time. There's always somebody that I went to. But then instead of hearing my story, while I've got the evidence in front of me and I can show it to you, instead of actually going over these with me, what he wants is me to do a bunch of fucking extra work so he can take it in the house and pretend I don't exist. I have to just trust that he did it. When he doesn't know it's in this stuff, he doesn't know the course material, how are you going to believe that your student basically is actually reading it? You know, what are the chances that instead of that, he's getting absorbed in some meth project that's on fucking tweaker time, and he's going to tell me that it's my fault for not calling when I did. He's going to tell me it's my fault for not texting when I did. My fault for not knocking on the door when I did. Or when he says you should have just walked in. Well, if you'd have told me that beforehand, then I'd have had permission and I would have. And I've explained that to him time and again, but he just doesn't get it. He wants me to walk into a house where the dog barks at anybody who approaches the door. So at fucking 11 o'clock at night or later, you want me to just walk up to the door and make the dog bark and wake up everybody in the house? And I don't know if they're all awake or if they're asleep. What I'm out here doing is trying to get the help that I need, because the people who are here in person don't have the capacity to help me. It's kind of like Dallas Richmond. No matter what happened there, he wasn't going to pay attention. The only time he wanted to hear anything about it is, well, he never wanted to hear anything about it. The only time he wanted to bring it up is when his coworkers were treating him like trash for letting me stay there. He didn't find anything out about the situation. He didn't care. He cared about getting drunk and playing video games. When I first moved in, he had a job, so I was able to work on stuff. But then he quit his job, and his family and myself paid for the bills. Or how about Brett Roloff? The same shit. Just different quantity and different kinds, but it's the same shit. All of the stuff that meth addicts pile on top of that. When they say they're going to help you and you get there and you realize they're on meth. I didn't go intentionally moving into meth people's places ever, except under extreme circumstances. And in all of those extreme circumstances, it was somebody sober who invited me, or somebody sober who made it so that I wasn't as afraid of those drug addicts. At the same time, those drug addicts will push till they get what they want. They've been doing it for years. You got to get your fix somehow. You got to try to find that money to get your fix somehow. A lot of these folks sit around spending a lot of time thinking about how to rob places, how to rip people off, and how to destroy the lives of people who speak up. So I try to make sure that I speak up in a public place where you can still see it. We're only 8 minutes into it, almost 9 minutes.
Predator has a position of power and has you sent somewhere and then lies to those people, knowing that those people are going to blindly believe them because they have that position of power.
I have no idea what the word for that is, but it's abuse of power.
It is. Like when I tried to turn in officers in Colorado and Nebraska, the same as I did here, those officers arrested me or sent me to the hospital and told the hospital that I was schizophrenic and delusional and trying to hurt people. Or there's no evidence of that. They also claimed that I was threatening to kill people, which there's no evidence of that either. The reason there's no evidence of it is because it never happened. But because they claimed it, these mental health places prevent me from being allowed access to the evidence. When they sent me to the hospital here, they used the people at TFCC that I was trying to turn in. I have the paperwork from them showing that they were aware that I was not schizophrenic or delusional, but continued to pretend that I was schizophrenic and delusional through all of my court stuff, including lying in the courts.
I've got the paperwork. Now, this is multiple times. This is probably a dozen times where he has gone out of his way to make it so that the only way to communicate with him is in a way that he's not going to look at this stuff. If he says he's going to look at it, it's only by himself. He doesn't go over it with me. The one page that we did go over, the whole time we were going over that page, I had to... God, I ought to play that one too, and I do plan on it. But there's the paperwork from the hospital. This is the stuff that I had to take down to the printing place because he was going to make these prints. He wanted to try to sell this idea that he was going to do this printing thing. Let him do this printing thing for me. And that's not what I needed. Okay. Yes, I need it printed, but I need it printed now. I don't need it when you eventually maybe get around to it. He wanted to do my laundry. I didn't need him to do my laundry, but he wanted to keep on offering and pushing it and not taking no for an answer. All right, fine. I'll let you do my laundry, but what I need is these copies. And the most important copies are the ones that I gave him. And then this pile right here went to the print shop. He ghosted me for 2 days. I got a whole box full of stuff that was printed. It cost me nearly $500, but it was worth every penny because it actually got done. It actually got done. Has Tony made those copies? No, what I had to do is wait on him even longer to get those papers back. Now, the thing is, with the stuff that I had piled in here, there was no room for a fucking basket of clothes. And there was no room for this container full of papers that was copied. I'm following the instructions that I'm given by all these different agencies that I'm calling that are telling me to do a bunch of stuff that costs a bunch of money I don't have. And Tony's going to argue about every bit of it. It's going to come down to he is going to twist it and manipulate it and argue it until he gets his way. Yeah, I gave him $1,000 yesterday. I told him, just like I told many others, these are drug addicts. I'm having to go to CARE who's not helping because they don't care. So I'm having to ask drug addicts for help with what CARE was supposed to be doing this entire time and weren't. And still, it's over the phone. When I tell him that something is overwhelming to me, that's part of autism. I'm overwhelmed. You need to let me defragment before we can do something. And then he believes that after he's said he's not going to do that other stuff anymore or try to talk me into that stuff anymore. Then when I say, I need time to defragment because he has made looking at evidence impossible, then he decides, oh, well, we're off duty, so to speak. So now it's okay to continue to push this stuff like a crackhead. Now it's okay to talk nonstop about this electronic stuff that you plan on doing. I don't want to hear about your plans nonstop when you're not doing it. Just like I didn't want to hear your plans with the photocopying, and you want to tell me all of the intricacies about how photocopies work and all of this stuff about toner, and then you want to go down to this place and look for toner, and then you want to tell me you have plenty of toner. Okay, well, where's the copies? Where's the copies? It's been over a week since you got that paper, and I still don't have those copies because I had to take them to the coffee shop here in Tillamook. I mean, this is overwhelming. All right. I explained to him I try to explain to him how what he is stuck on is making it worse for me. He says he understands, and then he continues to make it worse for me. And then he says he understands, and I can't explain it to him because he's not going to let me give him the explanation. And I'm overwhelmed with having to deal with people like this. Then I can't communicate. It's not that I haven't been trying. It's that at this point, you have gone out of your way to make this such an impossible project this entire week. When he doesn't keep his word, it's somehow my fault. It's my fault because I didn't call when I did call. It's my fault for not texting, and I did text. It's my fault for not knocking on the door, and I did knock on the door. Then it's my fault for not walking in. Like, you literally are always going to be the bad guy with drug addicts. Always. It is always going to be your fault that Natalie Bollinger did fucked up shit because she's a drug addict. It's always going to be your fault that Tony is doing fucked up shit because he's a drug addict. It's always your fault as the victim because you are being victimized at that point. They're showing you a severe amount of disrespect. They are putting your life at risk. They are putting your family at risk. And this is the most disgusting part of it. He and his help has not only prevented me from going to the appointments I needed to, prevented me from working on the things that I needed to, pushed all of my scheduling back over a week, but I'm still having to fix the problems that he still, every time, claims that he has identified it and he's going to stop, and he does it again. I can't have that. I can't have somebody helping if the most simple thing becomes building a friggin' space shuttle or the equivalent thereof. With a healthy amount of skepticism.
And the important part for all of this is to start at the beginning, because the stuff they're using as their excuse to deny me my rights is all stuff that happened and started in Colorado and Virginia with Natalie Bollinger. All of the abuse that I endure, people downplay how much abuse I actually have to take. A lot of times they say, well, I didn't see it. I don't hear it. I'm right there. I'm pretty close to you. And like, for example, the first time I tried to tell you about the folks who were yelling, you said that you didn't hear them, and you're right in the same house. And, obviously my tent is a plastic tent. I hear shit here a lot better than somebody in the house is. When Andrew Wolnez walks by, he walks by on the sidewalk and shout, not loudly, but angrily in this direction, just loud enough that I can hear him. But it's not the same as when Sky Crawford is across the street screaming at the top of his lungs for his girlfriend.
And I can't hear that either, dude. I can't hear anything down here. Serious, I can't hear nothing. And I'm not saying that it's not happening. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Right.
I do believe it's happening.
The first few times I told him about it, he did. He did treat me like I must be making it up because he didn't hear anything. Then later, when he did hear something, that things were getting weird, it's not like Sky wasn't doing that nearly every night. He was doing it nearly every night. But then they get so used to it, they don't differentiate one person screaming from another. They just know that the drug addicts across the street are at it again. And that's the way that it's just assumed to be, that it's just that stuff again. Instead of, hey, they're screaming that they're going to kill somebody, sure. They're screaming it again, sure. It gets screamed a lot, sure. But on this particular occasion, you didn't recognize that it was being screamed at the house. Of course, there's some better walls than I got in between those sounds and those people. And there's also sound canceling headphones between those sounds and those people. Oh, I gotta keep on unlocking it because I keep on talking through it. And we're only, less than 10 minutes through a over 2 hour video. It's already an hour long on this because of having to explain this.
I don't hear because it's when you get down here, there's fans going.
Well, some of the stuff that you've gotten to hear in the mornings and some of the stuff that Roy has gotten to hear, you guys have gotten to hear more of it more recently, and more of the strange stuff more recently.
I do notice it though when I'm out outside late at night and stuff. But absolutely, it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, a lot of that's not related to me, thank goodness. But at the times that it is, it's important for me to turn it in right away. What the police have repeatedly told me is to go tell Roy, and I do tell Roy. Roy is fine with me recording, so I record when I speak to him too. It's, when I tell him like I'm supposed to, so that he can help me to turn it in, it becomes story time, and he starts telling me a story. So it's something where I just have to accept it.
Yeah, I tried to tell him not to do that today. Like I said, you need to listen more and talk less.
Yeah.
You're trying to do something and you're not listening.
So one of the things is people like to start off with hostility or taking a hostile tone with me, which I'm sure you know exactly what that is. That's something that they know that somebody has PTSD, and they know that they can use that tone to intimidate somebody and make them afraid to speak. Another thing they'll do is they'll ask a question in an angry tone over and over and over again. Even while you're trying to answer it, they're interrupting and saying it over and over and over again. They're trying to affect you in a way where your communication skills are lost, and then your words don't come together right, and then they can manipulate that in order to harm you. And the fact that I've had to make these calls by myself means that I've got them recorded, but now I have to find somebody to sit and listen to them. Whereas if somebody would have made the call with me to begin with, I wouldn't have gotten treated that way, or more than likely wouldn't have been treated that way. And the thing about all of these different places that I'm getting a hold of is that the abuse by these departments has put my life at risk. It has resulted in me being harmed in multiple jurisdictions. And one of the things I was going to try to do with you is to sit down with you and show you some of the videos of the assaults, not just the ones here, but also the fact that it's been nationwide. Also to show you the evidence of the places that I've been forced to live in, including this one, because of this. This obviously, you can easily guess that this isn't my optimal place where I'd like to live, This is a place where I feel completely like I'm a burden, despite the fact that you guys don't treat me like a burden. It's also a place where, like, to get in and out of the door, I have to move stuff with a fucked up back and not supposed to lift anything more than 10 pounds and not supposed to twist. My whole bed is a bunch of paperwork from all over the country showing that they used the situation of police officers in the Natalie Bollinger situation and the Bollingers pretending that I'm quote unquote mentally ill to insinuate I was schizophrenic. One of the papers that I have to still dig out, it's from the Longmont Hospital. I was trying to turn in the abuse, and the to Longmont, and it was a situation where I was literally forced to break the law. It's called coercion. The threats and harassment and intimidation towards my family made it become necessary. And I'll show you the people involved in that. I mean, I literally have all of the people involved and all of the people who they were connected with. I've got all of that evidence. But one of the things is sitting down and recognizing there's too much for any person to go through. I literally have to go through, on my YouTube channel, there's over 8,000 videos. I probably have close to 30,000 audio recordings. Many of them are hours long. Some of these things I was able to find, luckily, and a lot of these things I was able to record. But the thing is that the false arrests by the police prevent me from paying bills, prevent me from keeping my phones, which prevents me from being able to have access to log back into those things. They know that I'm poor. They also know that if I get a bunch of money from somebody to get a lawyer and I get a lawyer, then they can pretend that I'm committing disability fraud because I have all this money coming in, or take away my disability money because I have all that money coming in. And I would have to come up with money in order to fight them in court for abusing their power again. I mean, this is a situation that I've seen many times and endured myself for many of these situations. And that's one of the things about generalizing to begin with, because it's not just one person or just one group of people. It's many people over a long period of time. It's called frequent and ongoing abuse. The fact that I still have to be afraid of my predators because the professionals that I had to go to wanted to treat it like it was a delusion, primarily because they wanted to make money. That's the thing with when police pawn you off onto mental health because they don't want to do their jobs. And mental health, instead of doing what it is that the police are telling you that mental health is supposed to do, mental health wants you to come back week after week after week, or like once a month, right, as they do here in Tillamook, to go to a therapy session. So you tell this therapist about people who are threatening to kill you and physically assaulting you, and you know they're supposed to help you, these different agencies.
Now, the actual evidence that I need him to see is actual incidents with actual dates, paper evidence, audio recorded evidence, video recorded evidence, YouTube evidence, Facebook evidence, evidence in my telephones, evidence in USB drives. I've got the evidence. I need you to look at it. All of this extra work to try to send it in that you're saying that you're going to do, I don't need that. I've got all of that stuff. I don't need more cameras. All right, I can't keep up with the stuff that I have. I have too much. Okay, and a lot of my stuff is replacements for things that people who promised to help me ended up stealing. Or replacements that things that my predators broke. Like Andrew Wolnez breaking my phone, and Lisa Parker breaking my phone, and Robert Franklin Warnick breaking my phone. You tell me to record it when people are doing this shit. Well, I record it when people are doing this shit and they break my phone. And then call me mentally ill. And of course, if it's a police officer that I'm trying to turn in that shows up, he's not going to let me fix my phone. If you're in an area where you have to travel over 100 miles to find a place that can fix your phone, like, well, for example, Chapel, Nebraska. And then you have to do that without a vehicle, which means that you're dependent on others. You have to do that while you don't have any money, because all of your disability money is being spent traveling to go see therapists and going to court dates over and over and over again. Now, out of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that these guys spent, these guys being government agencies such as the criminal justice system, out of all the money that they spent and all of the time that they ate up, how much of my disability money did they eat up? And how much of my disability money did helpers eat up having ideas of anything other than listening to understand? Listening to reply, yeah. Listening to make excuses, sure. But never listening to understand. Even if I tell them straight up, what I need you to do is look and listen. When somebody's saying that I did something bad, the question is why? Why did I did something bad? When you say, oh, Sean, you're horrible, you threaten those people. No. That's never been the case. I only threatened 2 people. One of them I threatened back out of desperation to try to get a court date so I could show how many times he and his friends had fucking threatened to kill me and harassed me over and over and over and over again, and not one fucking friend gave a shit. Not one fucking cop gave a shit. Oh, just ignore it? That's your advice? When I've got hundreds of recordings and screenshots of people telling me that they were threatened, harassed, and intimidated. My sister told me, she texted me that people had actually come up to her and my niece in person to threaten their lives over this. And I've posted up the evidence on this YouTube channel. Why is it going to YouTube instead of this guy looking at it? The reason that it's going to YouTube instead of this guy looking at it is because he's not making the time to look at it. People who care make time. They make time to help you how you need. And he says over and over again, he understands now, and he's going to help me how I need. But he didn't need to wash the clothes. I did need those copies. I needed them last week so that I could post up the actual evidence on YouTube for you guys to see, because he's not looking at it. For me to show you guys and explain the situation, because he's not hearing it and he's not looking at it. It's a lot easier to show you when it's right here with me. When I'm having to read something to him over the phone, and then he forgets because he's got no visual memory. He hasn't seen the evidence. He's just having to believe that I'm reading something to him. Well, finally, when he was here in my tent in person for me to show it to him, he was talking 200 miles an hour with all of his ideas, and then he started coming down and got bored. We never went over this. Then, of course, when I got the copies and got these, I went down to the coffee shop and we picked them up, because he did go down there with me to at least pick them up. I got 3 copies of this abuse and neglect paperwork. This is from all the way in 11/19/2022. That's how long I've had these papers. That's how long I've been going around to these places. That's how long I've been following these instructions. So I gave him a copy, and he put it on his dash, and I set mine on the dash, and I left them in there. And I tried to message him, and I let another feller that runs into him often know that I needed those. Well, it didn't happen. And one of the recordings from yesterday, when he asked if I got the papers, yeah, he set them out in the weather under something. And at least he got them to me. I'm not ungrateful for him getting them to me, but he still never went over them with me. Still. We've gone over 1 page, and then he wanted to argue with me over how he was pretty sure we went over all 4. No, we didn't. I went over it on YouTube. He didn't go over it with me. So then when he gives me the copies back yesterday, he's supposed to have a copy for him so that he's got a reference. So that when, heaven forbid, he forces it to be an over the phone thing, at least he's got a copy of it in front of him. Okay? This isn't rocket science, and he's turning it into rocket science. He's turning it into an impossibility to even go over this one set of papers. There's 4 pages here. I've got 2 sets because I gave 1 set to Mike. Because obviously giving Tony a copy isn't gonna result in anything except for it getting lost somewhere. So the most important papers I'm still waiting on after over a week. I'm still waiting on them because I had to take them to the print shop. And of course, it was real late in the week, and I know how much of a pain it is. God, I hate that my buttons are coming undone. You know, it's not easy to do that stuff. That kind of work can give you carpal tunnel. Now, given the amount that they took a photocopy of, or took prints of, and how complicated it actually was compared to the rest of it, I figure it'll take about $6,000 to take prints or to get copies of the 3 crates full of papers that are in my bed, the crate over in the corner that is full of papers as well, the papers that are in one of my roll-out luggage cases that stayed out in the rain. This is one of the things that I was trying to explain. One of the key reasons I was trying to explain to him to stop bringing me stuff. I was tripping over shit at night. I literally fell over into a pile of dookie. It was, well, I don't get embarrassed, so no problem. And I had some wet wipes that night. Thank goodness that was the last of my wet wipes, though. And, you know, I've got all of this stuff that I brought here from storage, and he did help me to do that. So there's things he has helped me with. It's the issue of when he's decided something in his head, there is nothing you're going to do to stop him. It's kind of like Andrew Wolnez. Once he's decided that he's going to fucking stalk you, nobody is going to stop him. Nobody fucking cares to stop him. They want to talk about all the horrible shit that he's doing and the horrible shit he's doing to them, but he's still walking around doing it to all of us. Meanwhile, we can't even get this guy to look at the evidence and turn it in with me because what he's going to do is make it over the phone. But you hear it's the same thing. I'm stuck in the freeze loop because the help that I need, I'm not getting. Getting my evidence seen is worth more than my entire life, and I mean that. How is somebody going to help me to get heard if they won't even listen themselves? When the things that I'm telling them, they're downplaying in their head as soon as I say it, because they're not actually thinking about the reality of it, and they're not letting me tell them the reality of it. My circumstances don't matter to them, and if they don't know the circumstances, they're not going to be able to help. You need to know the circumstances. Telling me, oh, I don't need to see it, I believe you. How many recordings do I have with people who supposedly care telling me that? How many recordings do I have and screenshots of them later on where they wanted to say, well, I didn't see anything. You refused to look. And these guys have great ideas. When these guys say, hey, let's walk together, safety in numbers is what I always say, right? The problem is that my friends and family, before and after Natalie was killed, Even that was beyond them. Sean, I'll tell you pretty words, but I'm not going to go in with you. I'll promise that I'll go in with you just to appease you, but I'm going to make sure that the only time we make an effort is when it's obvious it's not going to work. I'm going to prioritize games on my phone over keeping my word. Yeah, that was Kayla Trujillo in Longmont, Colorado, and when she was in Aurora, Colorado. And then she wanted to make a comparison between me on my phone trying to get help, going through evidence, reviewing the shit that we got to turn in, and her playing on her phone on a word game. And then, of course, all day long, I'm trying to get her attention. Hey, Kayla, well, Miss Peaches, that's what she goes by. Hey, Miss Peaches, I drove all the way here because you were going to look at evidence and help me to turn it in, and you've been on your phone all day. Well, you've been on your phone all day. I've been waiting on you. I've told you that I'm ready over a dozen times, and you got snappy with me because you were busy. This is the woman who wanted to tell me after Natalie's death, when she was being extremely rude to me. And I said to her, I tried to get you to listen. And she said, well, you should have tried harder. You know what happened every time that I tried harder? Every time I tried to get her to come back on topic, she fucking snapped at me. She yelled at me. She treated me like I was a horrible person. When she told me that they didn't have any cigarettes and they didn't have any food and they got kids. And she'll listen to me. They just need cigarettes and food. So I go there and I bring cigarettes and food. And I also panhandled to get them cigarettes and food. And she never made the effort. I was there for 3 days. And she never made the effort. They smoked the cigarettes. They ate the food. The Magic the Gathering cards, they got those. They got to keep those. You know, we don't have Christmas presents. Oh, Sean, I just want Magic cards. Why are you giving me a Christmas wish list? I don't have any money. I've spent all of my money. I don't understand why these people are giving me Christmas wish lists. And when I'm there for 3 days and they tell me, oh, well, after the kids go to bed, and then after the kids go to bed, they play Diablo 3. Or, of course, there's Shannon Alvarado in Colorado or in California. She says when her daughter goes to bed, and then when her daughter goes to bed, she's busy being fucking drunk already and yelling at her boyfriend that he's cheating on her, or he gets drunk with her and they have sex. But in either event, it's not helping me. And it was more often than not the screaming, not the sex. The yelling at each other, she'd kick him out over and over and over again, and he'd just refuse to leave. But if he left on his own, then she wanted me to go with her to go find this guy. Like, Jesus, what the hell kind of psycho bullshit? Oh, yeah, it's called alcoholism, folks. And then these folks don't want their personal business out there. But the thing is, it's not your personal business. It's not that I wasn't trying to get help. It's that I'm having to deal on drug addicts. I'm having to work with drug addicts and schizophrenics. I'm having to deal with strangers who don't know it, don't know what's going on, and the story sounds crazy. And then, of course, when they look it up, they realize it's not as crazy as it sounds. But also, there's only one side that they post up. The only time that they post up stuff from me is when they're trying to twist that shit out. Pretend like it's something that it ain't. Like when they post up that little tiny clip that says, where it's a message out of hundreds of messages that, if you read them in order, it makes sense. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to pull out a little piece where she said that I couldn't go to her house. There's also an explanation of her why I couldn't go to her house. She wanted to visit with me. She wanted to see me, so did her sister. They just didn't want to deal with judgment from their mother, okay? So this right here, they're trying to hide the fact that I exist from their mother. These are two grown adults, okay? Natalie and Alicia Bollinger are grown adults. They're not children. They're not 5-year-olds. They're not hiding a puppy in the backyard. Why would you do that? Oh, yeah, because your family are a bunch of judgmental assholes. It happens. She said they just wouldn't be understanding, that they wouldn't understand how we love each other. Well, to my understanding, we loved each other as friends. To my understanding, she was worried that her mom might jump to some crazy fucking conclusion that me and Natalie Bollinger were having sex and that I'd traveled all the way there for sex, that it was a promise of sex, and that I had brought drugs and sex, and this is what I was interested in putting back into her life, and so on and so on and so on. I mean, the reality of it is that these people who did horrible things to Natalie Bollinger through her entire life used me as their scapegoat, used me as their excuse. You kidding me? These people did this shit to her. And you look at the messages from her. These people did these things to her before I ever knew she existed. There's also the fact that Natalie's ex-stepmothers and her mother used to be former gutter punks or street urchins, whatever you want to call them, out on the streets. Where did Ted Bollinger pick these ladies up? Off the streets with drugs and alcohol. So they had a bunch of kids that, well, I'm not talking trash on them because, honestly, there aren't very many of you that were conceived by people who were sober. Many of the youngins who I've had to protect from their parents, I went to school with their parents. Some of the smartest people that I knew in high school ended up being the shittiest parents. I'm going to end this video and I'm going to try to play this from the beginning and try not to interrupt it. And even though I cannot physically function because of everything that I had to do, I still have to manage and clean up and pick up in here so that I can start going through and doing all of the organizing of all of the paperwork that every time I have to move, it gets disorganized. Every time that I have to call up a place and they only want certain evidence or certain information, and I have to spend all that time digging through just for those parts. So it's out of order, and I'm having to do it from conditions like this or worse. I'm just a boy whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.